Regular programming will not be seen this evening so that we may bring you the following special presentations. Is our area ready for the next big storm? Bob Breck hosts Hurricane Warning next. Then, stay tuned at 8 as Jim Gallagher and Lionel Bienvenu introduce the 1993 New Orleans Saints, and Ron Swoboda reports on the Saints in the land of the rising sun. And at 9, it's the Saints and the Eagles live from Tokyo, a special night on WVUE Channel 8.
Give you some idea of the winds that are causing this. We clocked a gust here at the Hurricane Center up to 147 miles per hour. So the sphere of Andrew's influence right now well within South Florida. And we are going to be experiencing these winds, and the storm surge, by the way, is probably crashing ashore right about now.
It was just after midnight, August 24th, not even a year ago. The most destructive storm in modern history came ashore in South Florida. Children in Dade County were frightened by what they called a roaring monster. It was a monster named Andrew. By the light of day, we could all see how ferocious the monster really was. Andrew destroyed more than 25,000 homes in South Florida and damaged 100,000 others. It left a trail of 200,000 homeless people, $30 billion of ruins, and 63 dead. Amazingly, experts say Andrew was not the worst-case scenario. For us, Andrew is a teacher with lessons on how to save lives and property. In this program are lessons we should never forget as we wait for the next hurricane warning.
Tonight's special presentation, Hurricane Warning, is a project of WVUE Weather 8.
Hurricane Warning is being brought to you by Carrier and your Carrier Comfort Pro, by Coolview Aluminum, by Petrocom, by LAS Enterprises, and by Egan Insurance Agency.
When we return, what's your best defense against the raging winds of a hurricane? Ken O'Quan reveals tips on how to protect your property. That and the plans for a hurricane-resistant home when WVUE's special presentation, Hurricane Warning, continues.
At Egan Insurance Agency, we represent a multitude of companies. More companies mean more resources. More resources mean more options for you, your family, and your business. Egan Insurance does more than sell policies. We match the greatest value from a variety of companies to meet your needs. We're the experts. We get involved. We examine what's right for you. Egan Insurance, protection beyond the ordinary.
Coolview manufactures and installs roll-of-view security shutters for your home or business. They're perfect for windows, doors, balconies, and other building openings. Rolling shutters provide impact-resistant security from damaging winds and flying debris, and they can't be opened from the outside. Let Coolview install comfort, security, privacy, storm protection, and sun control, all at the touch of a button with automated rolling shutters. Call Coolview Aluminum, the fully insured and licensed home improvement specialists, at 943-3316. Low financing is available.
An oil tanker erupted into an inferno of fire in the Gulf of Mexico.
And Petrocom Services aids offshore crew evacuations in the otherwise...
Hurricane Andrew hits the Gulf of Mexico hard. Hundreds.
An oil rig toppled under hurricane force winds.
Honey, don't worry, I'm safe.
You can't afford to be without reliable offshore communications. Petrocom Offshore Cellular Service.
Hi, handyman Craig Lowe to talk with you about some real air conditioning facts. Did you know that Carrier invented air conditioning, and they're by far the world's largest? Now let me discuss one fact that makes Carrier number one. Carrier has the highest SEER-rated air conditioner available, and that's important because you can save over 50% on your electricity bill when replacing your old unit. But don't be fooled. SEER ratings are only good with Carrier factory-matched equipment. If you don't buy Carrier from a Peace of Mind Comfort Pro dealer, you really will pay too much.
So what is a hurricane? Well, in this part of the world, it's a spinning mass of disturbed air, always moving in a counterclockwise direction. Hurricanes are fed by heat and water. Inside this tropical cyclone, warm water vaporizes. Sustained winds reach 74 miles per hour, and they continue to strengthen as the storm becomes categorized by its fury. The lower the pressure inside the storm, the stronger the winds. The average hurricane is 300 miles wide. Now, a hurricane is a three-part killer with destructive winds, rapid rising floodwaters, and a slamming storm surge. We will deal with the threat of water later. But first, what is our defense against the wind? Let's begin at home as Ken Oakland reports.
As we learned from Hurricane Andrew, there are 4 weak spots on homes that cause the most significant wind damage. They are windows, doors, garage doors, and wood gable ends. When any of these areas failed, trouble soon followed. As you can imagine, no home is built to withstand 145-mile-per-hour raging winds inside. So to shield your home, here's how you can reinforce every possible entry point. The first defense against the wind is protecting your windows. Should you tape your windows? The answer is no.
I think the only thing that the tape on the windows will do is that if the window shatters, it may reduce a little bit in terms of the shrapnel flying through the house. It's not going to keep the windows from breaking, but it may reduce a bit, and particularly if you've got the tape on both sides, it may keep big pieces from flying through your house. But you should be out away from those glass windows. You need to find an interior compartment where you're not going to be exposed to that kind of debris.
Taping will keep glass from splintering, but it will not be strong enough to keep a Category 3, 4, or 5 winds from entering your home. The best covering for your windows is some sort of shutter. If you do not have roll-down or hinge shutters on your home, then you should have plywood shutters made and stored away for an impending storm. When making plywood shutters, it doesn't pay to cut corners. You should buy at least a 5/8" exterior glade plyboard. The plywood shutter should overlap the window by 4 inches or more on every side. Do not fit the plywood inside the window opening. That puts wind pressure on the weaker window frame and not on the solid wall. Anchors should be set 2 inches from the edge of the plywood and set no more than 18 inches apart. For large window openings like sliding glass doors, you will have to add support to the plywood shutters. This can be a 2x4 beam angled from the plywood and secured at the ground with a stake. Now let's move to the doors. The most vulnerable doors are double and French doors, but all doors should be reinforced against the storm pressure and flying debris. When strengthening your doors, you may add surface-mounted slide bolts to the inside and outside of your weakest doors. If that's not practical, then bolt a 2x4 across the doors, making sure it is secured to the house frame. If your door opens outward, you're most likely not at risk of having the wind blow it in. To strengthen garage doors, install vertical supports, either wood or metal, behind the garage doors. They should be bolted to the garage floor and frame. And protect window-covered gabled ends. In Andrew, many of these windows and gabled end roofs blew out, causing an updraft which tore the roofs off of many houses. You should also trim overhanging tree limbs and thin out foliage for maximum airflow. If the wind can penetrate the foliage, it is less likely to uproot it. All of these tips will help protect your home against the ferocious winds of a hurricane. But remember, if only one of these shields fail, your property could experience the full wrath of nature. For WVUE News 8 Weather, I'm Ken Oakland.
Those recommendations from Ken offer you a strong line of defense against the wind. In Hurricane Andrew, it was the wind that caused the most severe damage in South Florida. And ironically, the damage there happened despite some of the strongest building codes in the country. When the clouds blew over, a storm of controversy remained. The tough building codes were victims of fraud, contractors cutting corners, inspectors looking the other way. In Florida, builders used cheap particle board in place of plywood, staples instead of nails and screws, and many never bothered with the timber fasteners required by code. A recent Times-Picayune article boasts of hurricane-resistant codes in our own backyard. But who's policing the builders? And how closely are they following the code?
There's also no question that many homes that failed and suffered damage are far better built than they are anywhere else in the country. Okay? That's the problem. As you go down into many of your parishes around the greater New Orleans area there, you'll find that the structures there are not built as well as they are in Dade County, for instance. And so the potential wind damage there is large. And then, of course, we've always got the major threat for loss of life, and that's water. And New Orleans is up there all by itself in the potential for loss of life due to water.
Dr. Bob Sheets, the director of the National Hurricane Center, offers little optimism. He doesn't believe our area homes can survive the constant thrashing of Category 3, 4, or 5 hurricane winds, and here's why. Only recently have some of our parishes adopted the Southern Building Code, which requires that walls are anchored to the foundation and roofs fastened to the walls. If these code requirements are met, the building should be able to withstand winds of up to 100 miles per hour. Mind you, that's only a Category 2 storm. But this is a community characterized by its old construction, and the lenient protective codes have only been in effect for 6 years. Todd Davidson of the Technical Standards Division of the Federal Emergency Management Agency explains the concept of modern-day requirements.
The idea of buildings failing has very much to do with the connecting devices between these major structural components and not so much with the material itself. The idea is to firmly tie the building together as one unit so that the loads that are placed on the building, both the wind loads and the water loads, are transferred from the roof through the walls to the foundation. And so essentially the building does not rip apart.
So how do you build a hurricane-resistant house?
When you build a house to be wind resistant, you have to start from the foundations and go up. You've got to tie every bit of it together so it acts as an entity. You've got to make sure that the loads that occur on the roof can get down into the foundations. And to come back in a retrofit situation, it's tough.
Picture this as being what we call the bottom plate. This would run along your foundations. If you're on a concrete slab, it would be bolted, no matter what it would be. It'd be securely bolted to whatever the substructure is. Then you have the walls of the house, which are studs. How do we attach this to this? The classic method was toe nailing. Driving a nail this way, multiple nails like that. Now let's see what happens with wind forces on the roof hit a toe-nailed structure. And there it goes. I think homeowners should insist that their home be assembled with timber connectors. Simple little, worth just pennies, bits of heavy gauge galvanized metal that's secure. Instead of that toe nailing process, it is direct nailing into the plate and nailing here. You would have a heck of a time. I mean, I wouldn't have the force here to lift this off of here.
Now, when building a hurricane-resistant home, use anchor bolts to secure the bottom beam into the foundation. Tie the wall studs to the foundation with metal tie brackets. Use clips to attach the truss to the top plate. Use clips or straps to attach the top plate to the wall studs. Always be sure to use plywood under shingles and not particle board. Particle board soaks up water. More importantly, it won't hold the roofing nails.
Look what worked and what didn't. In other words, here's a strong building code and a building practice that is used in South Florida, has been used for years. And those houses built in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, concrete blocks, steel reinforced tie beams, steel reinforced tie columns, roofs fastened on. My house, I was in the eye wall, they're still there. Okay, they're still there. Yes, I suffered about 40,000 damage in my house, external kind of damage, but it's still there. If I want to go look at the modern houses, and I've seen a lot of them around New Orleans area that are more of the Midwest, Northeast, California-style homes, multiple level roofs, wood frame structures not properly reinforced, cathedral ceilings, glass in the ends, those were the ones that failed.
It's surprising to me that the insurance companies that bear the brunt of all these things haven't insisted that any house that they would insure would have all of these precautions, and they haven't.
It seems Andrew was also a lesson for insurance companies. They are cracking down on inadequate codes and violations. They are pushing for stricter building codes and better enforcement, and they plan to use a new insurance rating system to guarantee their success. Here's how it will work. Communities that have stiffer construction codes and good enforcement records would be rewarded with lower insurance rates. When we return, we will study how we are prepared against flooding and storm surge.
In a moment, learn how protected we are against flooding and storm surge, and fly into the eye of a storm as Howard Bernstein profiles one-of-a-kind hurricane heroes when we return with Hurricane Warning, a double...
It's not that I was so brave, but Chris Cobbleman had never camped out before. And even if this was my backyard, who knew what lurked behind the ligustrum, or lingered in the corner where we buried the pet poodle? I was just glad that there was that gas light. The light, chasing away the fears of the night, banishing the boogeymen. The light was my friend, and Chris would be too, if we could just make it alive till morning.
Light up your imagination with natural gas outdoor lighting from Louisiana Gas Service Company.
You've been hearing me talk a lot about LES, but what's most important is what our customers have to say about LES.
When I was asked if I would recommend LES, I told them I'd already done so, and a next-door neighbor used LES.
I'm very pleased with my LES windows.
LES installers were talented, capable, and efficient.
Everything was done in a very professional way.
And if a problem should come up, I know LES will be there.
So whether it's siding, windows, or any type of home improvement, call the name you grew up with. Call LES today.
For years, you've depended on State Farm to insure your car. But did you know you can also depend on us to protect your family's future? State Farm. We sell life insurance.
State Farm sells life insurance, and like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Ready to talk Saints football after today's game?
Talk to me, Buddy D.
Want an honest opinion about the boys in black and gold?
Hey, man, were you watching the same game I was watching?
Hey, buddy, when you said that last week, I thought you were crazy, man, but you called it right again.
Talk to Buddy D. Nobody else tells it like it is.
Talk Saints football with me, Buddy D, right after today's game on WWL 870 AM.
That's WWL 870 AM. News Talk Sports Radio.
Welcome back. One of the most deadly forces in a hurricane is the storm surge. It develops when hurricane-force winds push up a wall of water. Now, this rapid rise in water was typified in Hurricane Camille when a 24-foot wave crashed ashore. A storm surge is different from a hurricane tide, which is a gradual rise in the water level. In New Orleans, a winding, visible barrier should protect the city from the hurricane tide and the storm surge. We know it as the levee system. The city's first levee dates back to 1719, a year after New Orleans was founded. That levee stretched more than 1 mile along the Mississippi River and stood 2 or 3 feet tall. But the city still flooded with regularity. By 1818, levees were being widened and raised. That in response to a disastrous flood 2 years earlier. In 1879, Congress authorized the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to build levees in the lower Mississippi River Valley. 11 years later, Louisiana established the Orleans Levee District. Following another tragic flood in 1927, Uncle Sam earmarked $300 million for additional flood control along the Mississippi. By 1930, the Orleans Levee Board began construction of the lakefront seawall to keep Lake Pontchartrain from pouring into the saucer-shaped city. Over 2 decades later, the New Orleans, Mississippi flood wall construction began at Dumaine Street. In 1965, Hurricane Betsy came to town, testing the city's rising levee system. But a section of the levee at the Industrial Canal broke, allowing a 16-foot storm surge to flood the lower 9th Ward. Residents rushed to their rooftops. Ever since, the Levee Board and the Army Corps of Engineers have been improving flood protection around the city. Still, there are gaps. This map shows vulnerability at the Orleans and the London Avenue canals. They are scheduled for complete flood protection by 1998. But Orleans is in better shape than West Jefferson, St. Charles, and Plaquemines parishes. Storm surge protection for these areas won't be completed until after the year 2000. St. John the Baptist Parish has yet to announce any plans for levee construction. Like Orleans, St. Bernard and East Jefferson are well protected by the sprawling levee system, though East Jefferson also remains at risk from a gap at the St. Charles Parish line. Because of the higher elevations on the North Shore, hurricane flooding is less likely for St. Tammany Parish, but rising rivers could still threaten lives and property. And along the Mississippi Gulf Coast, the water danger is mainly on the beaches and the bayous, since the land quickly rises as you move inland. Even with all those precautions, however, authorities believe that a slow-moving Category 4 or any Category 5 storm could cause flooding of 20 to 30 feet across our metro area. When you hear about water levels topping those marks, you wonder about alternative evacuation routes. There's been a great deal of discussion on vertical evacuation, using high-rise buildings for shelter. But studies indicate that most area buildings are not equipped to handle mass evacuations and may in fact become death traps. We'll be back in a moment.
Fly into the eye of a storm as Howard Bernstein profiles one-of-a-kind hurricane heroes when we return with Hurricane Warning, a WVUE Weather 8 special presentation. This hurricane season, pick up Bob's Hurricane Tracking Map at all participating chevrons, a community service of Kentwood Springwater and WVUE.
Hey, hotshot, want to win a trip to Cancun? Just take a picture of you and your friends having fun with New Orleans Original Daiquiris. The Daiquiris logo must be in the photo on a cup, t-shirt, or whatever. Show your stuff. Pick up an entry form at any New Orleans Original Daiquiris location. Take pictures of all your summertime fun with daiquiris. Then bring back or mail your photo entry to any of our 15 locations. So get original and enter the New Orleans Original Daiquiris Hot Shots photo competition today. Sponsored by Creative Tours. They know Mexico.
This summer's hot new family car is Family Circle's Domestic Car of the Year, Lumina, from your Super Chevy Geo dealers. This well-appointed all-American made car is roomy, comfortable, and very affordable. Lumina is built to last, fun to drive, and offers the security and safety of ABS brakes. An $800 preferred equipment discount plus $1,250 down payment assistance add up to $2,050 good reasons to experience Lumina now at your Super Chevy dealers.
When we pinpoint the location of a storm using the latitude and longitude coordinates, how can we be so sure of its exact position? Well, as crazy as it may sound, a specialized squadron of pilots and planes flies into the Fury to gather data and return it to the National Hurricane Center. Meteorologist Howard Bernstein traveled to the Mississippi Gulf Coast to learn more about the only unit in the world flying hurricane reconnaissance on a routine basis.
Storm tracking started back in 1943, July 27th, and a guy named Lieutenant Colonel Joe Duckworth with a navigator flew into a storm off Galveston, Texas, and that paved the way to the reconnaissance flights we have today.
Why did this guy do that?
I understand it was part of a barroom bet with some British aviators at the time, and they were talking about instrument flying, which wasn't very well developed at that time, and they made a bet with him that he couldn't fly out there and back without getting lost, and he did it.
In the 50 years since that historic flight, reconnaissance missions have come a long way. There are 12 specialized planes in use today by the 815th Weather Squadron located at Keesler Air Base in Biloxi. Lieutenant Colonel Gail Carter, chief meteorologist of the squadron, explains the storm tracker's mission.
We complement all the other data sources that the Hurricane Center uses, but what we offer them is precise meteorological data right around the center of the storm, and we measure with good precision where the location of that center is. We fly right directly into the through the side of the storm to the center, measure the winds, and give them a wind field, since our data points are taken every minute as we go in and out of the storm. So we give them a good high-density profile of that storm with good precision, and that's something that you can't get from satellite information alone.
The storm trackers take their orders from the National Hurricane Center in Miami, and they have a large area to cover.
The main area, of course, is the tropical Atlantic. That's the Atlantic, the Caribbean, and the Gulf of Mexico. We also cover the central Pacific out around Hawaii.
Last year, the storm trackers flew into the center of storms more than 100 times. The storm trackers flew in Hurricane Iniki as well as Andrew. They logged over 900 hours and made more than 100 storm fixes. That's when they fly directly into the center of the storm to pinpoint its location. These storm trackers approach the storm flying perpendicular to the winds. Through a series of maneuvers, they cross the eye wall 4 times, entering from the 4 main compass points. Pilot Roger Gardner, a Covington resident, tells us what it's like flying into a hurricane.
As we're flying into the eye wall of the storm, as we're approaching the eye wall, the feeder bands that make up the hurricane typically get closer together, more compact, if you will, and the ride characteristically gets rougher, more turbulent as you get closer into the eye wall. The eye wall of the storm is the most turbulent area. Then you get into the middle of the storm and you get that nice calm that everybody talks about in the middle of the eyes. And sometimes it's clear, you can see all the way down to the surface, and it's nice and smooth and very tranquil, which is good, because having just come through the eye wall, a lot of times you need that moment to catch your breath.
Along with the pilot, there are 5 crew members, including a weather officer. In 1991, the improved weather reconnaissance system, known as the IWRS, was installed on each plane. This computer-based system greatly enhanced the collection of weather data, along with the transmission of that data back to ground personnel. A battery of other sensitive weather equipment crowds the aircraft, but it's a piece of equipment that gets thrown out of the plane, which provides some of the best storm data. It is the dropsonde.
Dropsonde is basically the same as Raywindsonde that people are familiar with, the weather balloons, except ours is in a container that we'll put in this chamber here and release. As it's falling to the surface, the data that it's radioing back to us is the same as you would get from a weather balloon. As the sonde's falling, every 10 seconds we'll get pressures, temperature, humidities, and also winds.
Like many other crew members, Mike Scafidi has his own war stories.
Well, I guess it was Yugo. When we were flying into Yugo, and we hit it pretty good. And at the time, this keyboard wasn't strapped down, and, well, this one still isn't. And sitting there waiting to make the release, went through the eye wall, and the keyboards went flying, they disconnected. That was pretty interesting.
You might think that flying into the eye of a hurricane is crazy, but Captain Gardner sums it up like this.
We take a lot of pride in it. We get to help out quite a bit. We feel like we give something back to our communities. Most of the people that do this mission are from Louisiana, Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, coastal areas. They've grown up being affected by hurricanes their lives, most of their whole lives. So it's our way, we take pride in it because you feel like you're getting to help your community and give something back.
At the 815th Weather Squadron at Keesler Air Base, I'm Howard Bernstein.
Well, one pilot who flew into Andrew reported it was the roughest ride he'd ever experienced. Not only were the winds raging, but the pounding hail stripped the paint from the plane. These are by no means routine, risk-free flights. In fact, to date, 4 hurricane hunters have been lost in the Atlantic storms and Pacific typhoons. We'll return in a moment.
Coming up, should you decide to ride out the storm, how can you brace yourself for nature's fury? WVUE's Weather 8 Special, Hurricane Warning, will return in a moment.
Hi, Handyman Craig Lowe to talk with you about some real air conditioning facts. Did you know that Carrier invented air conditioning, and they're by far the world's largest? Now let me discuss one fact that makes Carrier #1. Carrier will be around when times get hot. I'll bet you that the manufacturer of your old unit isn't even in business any longer, and that's really important when you need to solve warranty problems. Guess where Carrier will be? Right where they've been since 1902. That's why if you don't buy a Carrier from a Peace of Mind Comfort Pro dealer, you'll really pay too much.
CoolView manufactures and installs roll-of-view security shutters for your home or business. They're perfect for windows, doors, balconies, and other building openings. Rolling shutters provide impact-resistant security from damaging winds and flying debris, and they can't be opened from the outside. Let CoolView install comfort, security, privacy, storm protection, and sun control, all at the touch of a button with automated rolling shutters. Call CoolView Aluminum, the fully insured and licensed home improvement specialists, at 943-3316. Low financing is available.
An oil tanker erupted into an inferno of fire in the Gulf of Mexico.
And Petrocom Services aids offshore crew evacuations in the otherwise...
Hurricane Andrew hits the Gulf of Mexico hard. An oil rig toppled under hurricane force winds.
Honey, don't worry, I'm safe.
You can't afford to be without reliable offshore communications. Petrocom Offshore Cellular Service.
The family-to-family relationship at Lights Egan began back in the 1800s when the Lights family operated one of the finest funeral services in the area. Today, 6 generations later, the Egan family continues this tradition. At Lights Egan, you'll receive personalized assistance in the planning and arranging of all your funeral details. Experience from a family who knows the meaning of caring. Lights Egan, family to family since 1854.
Coming up on WVUE Channel 8.
The Saints prepare for the first preseason game of the year. We'll look back at the week that was in Tokyo, Japan. A look at this unique city and how the Japanese people react to American football. We'll introduce you to the new Saints team, full of fresh faces, and a candid talk with Jim Mora. All that coming up tonight on Countdown to Tokyo.
Only on Channel 8. It's a pregame warm-up at 8, followed by the Saints and the Eagles live from Tokyo on WVUE.
Of the 40 million people threatened by hurricanes, 32 million have never been through a major storm. That's resulted in complacency, and often evacuation orders are ignored. When told to evacuate, you should do so immediately. But if you decide to ride out the storm, be prepared. Here's what you should do 24 hours before the storm hits. Select a safe room. Now, this is where you will ride out the storm. It can be a large interior closet, a bathroom, even a hallway. This room should be away from all windows. It's important that you stock your safe room with some very key things. You should have a battery-operated radio or TV set. Make sure you have extra batteries. You'll also need sleeping bags or cushions, some towels, and plenty of snacks and drinking water. You need to think ahead to the things you'll need after the storm has hit. Turn your refrigerator and freezer to the coldest settings. Remember, water is crucial. You'll need 7 gallons of drinking water per person. Put the water in clean jugs. You can sterilize the jugs by cleaning them with a little chlorine. There's a couple of other things to keep in mind. Put your valuables and personal papers in waterproof containers or plastic garbage bags and put them on the top of a closet or shelf. And make sure you have an extra supply of any prescription medicine that you might be taking. It's important to remember that if you've done the things we've suggested, you'll be much safer in your home than you would be if you were stuck out in a car in the middle of a traffic jam. Once the hurricane hits, it's crucial that you stay in your designated safe room, even if you hear windows breaking and other loud noises. It's extremely dangerous to expose yourself to the wind stream. Absolutely. Make sure you stay away from the windows at all times. Also, do not leave any windows open. There's no reason to do that. If the electricity goes out, use only flashlights. You should never use candles or kerosene lamps during a storm. Never cook during the storm. A gust of wind could spread a fire, and the fire department will most likely be unable to respond. Do not be fooled by calm moments during the storm. If the eye passes over you, the wind and rain may stop for as long as about a half an hour, but it will suddenly pick up again from the opposite direction and could be even stronger. You should consider turning off your circuit breakers before you lose power. The power surges that happen when the system fails could damage sensitive electronic equipment. In Hurricane Andrew, we were stunned to learn that far more people died during the cleanup than during the storm itself. So remember, once the storm is over, stay put until you hear an official all clear command. Don't go near downed power lines or anything touching those lines. These are tried and true lessons of safety born from Hurricane Andrew. We'll be back in a moment.
A hurricane wind engineer tells us what to expect from a major storm. That when WVUE's Hurricane Warning continues. In our schools, kids are learning about the mess we're in.
1/3 of our landfills will be full in 5 years.
And much of that waste will never decompose.
As part of an unprecedented program, kids are uncovering mistakes buried in our past
Will we bury our garbage, or will it bury us?
to discover ways to keep from throwing away our future.
What can you do? Recycle.
And watch as we make our focus Earth at Freeport McMoran and WVUE Channel 8.
Too much sugar and junk in your kids' snacks? New Gobble Sticks are 100% turkey breast meat, high in protein, 99% fat-free, and kids eat them up, which makes moms very happy. Gobble Sticks, new from the turkey store.
We know how to help you save during the Dodge 93 model clearance. For big performance in a mid-size pickup, choose the Dakota Club Cab 4x4. It features a V6 Magnum engine, AM/FM cassette, air conditioning, plus $26.83 in package savings.
Is this correct?
Absolutely. The factory authorized 93 model clearance. See your nearest Dodge dealer today.
It takes a lot to get me to leave Lake Edna. But I've come all the way to New Orleans to find the right spice for my Cajun crispy chicken meals. Maybe this.
Ooh, yeah, it's good, yasha.
Wow, these spices are magical. Everyone is craving Cajun crispy chicken, Zatarans, baked beans, red beans and rice, and spicy rice. That's wonderful.
We are KFC, and we do chicken right.
In Hurricane Andrew, it was the wind which caused most of the damage in South Florida. Standing by to discuss the lessons which we learned in Andrew is Dr. Joe Miner, a nationally recognized wind engineering and hurricane expert. Welcome, Dr. Joe.
Thank you.
Now, Dr. Joe, I understand that in Dade County, they've adopted a wind protection requirement similar to that proposed by you. Can you tell us about that?
Well, in the wake of Hurricane Andrew, it was determined that one of the principal causes of damage was windborne debris. The Dade County Building Code Committee has recommended that buildings, including housing, be designed for the impacts of windborne debris, which was very prevalent in Hurricane Andrew.
Doctor, if you're telling me that the winds, what they were blowing at houses was a real problem, what is a homeowner's first defense against the winds?
Well, once you accept the fact that a hurricane is a very severe storm in that it has gusty winds which last for hours, 3 hours or more in South Florida, and that wind changes slowly in direction as the eye passes, then you can accept the fact that a lot of things are flying about. The first line of defense from these gusty, sustained winds which are changing in direction is to keep the building envelope intact. You achieve that by designing systems for windows and doors which can accept the impact from debris without compromising the building envelope, meaning without punching holes in the walls of the roof. That is done with windows by using either shutters, which are properly designed for debris impact and securely anchored to the wall, or by using a product which is evolving as impact-resistant glass, which can accept the impact from the debris. It breaks, but does not exit the opening.
Now, Dr. Miner, you're referring to impact-resistant glass. Is this the kind of similar to what's in automobiles?
It's exactly the same as what's in a windshield of an automobile. Anybody that's seen an accident or accepted a baseball or a missile of some kind hitting the windshield knows that the glass breaks, but the windshield stays in place. The same exact concept is used for windows in houses and buildings.
In a typical $100,000 home, for instance, what kind of cost are we talking about with this kind of special glass?
We had a project housing group do an analysis in South Florida, and for a $150,000 home, the cost for impact-resistant glass was less than 1%, meaning less than $1,500.
Wow, that's certainly well worth it, no question about that. Now, in Louisiana, several of our parishes have adopted a couple of years back the Southern Building Code, and you well know that that states that the building can withstand winds of up to 100 miles per hour. Is that really adequate for South Louisiana, the coastal locations?
Well, actually, that's the standard building code, and yes, I've taken the position that if we did an adequate job of designing for 100 miles an hour, which may well be what's required there in New Orleans, and that was properly enforced, and we had such refinements as impact-resistant glass or shutters, then yes, you could expect quite good performance in your buildings. Now, there are several ifs that have to line up there, is if you have the standard and if it's enforced. But granting that those enforcement provisions are taken, I think you can expect quite good performance.
Well, the big key there is the enforcement, and that's always a tough thing to do when we're dealing with people, and we have had problems in Louisiana with that in the past. We've had a recent controversy here, Dr. Joe, between our mayor and Dr. Bob Sheets from the Hurricane Center, and Dr. Sheets was a little upset that in New Orleans, when Andrew was approaching, we didn't call off the conventions, and they just let the conventions roll on. In fact, the mayor said that tourists were safe staying in the hotels in downtown New Orleans during Andrew because those buildings could withstand winds of 155 miles per hour. Can I get your comments on these glass high-rises in downtown New Orleans? What's going to happen when say a Category 4 or 5 storm comes?
Well, I think you can expect the buildings that are major high-rises to be adequately designed for the hurricane, although, as we found out in Houston during Hurricane Alicia, you may have a considerable amount of glass breakage. It's not so much that there's an immediate threat to the people as it is the major inconvenience that you will have to deal with if you have a lot of visitors downtown in your city with power out and with minimum what we call lifeline supplies for food and other services. So my reaction to that would be you would be advised to evacuate your tourist community simply because of the major inconvenience to them and to you to have to deal with them in the wake of a storm.
Final question, Dr. Joe. Based on your experience in South Florida and how Andrew really leveled it, do you have any projections on what would have happened to the New Orleans community had that storm come, say, 60 miles closer to us?
Well, I think you would have had a similar scene. What a lot of people don't realize is that South Florida had what was and is one of the strongest codes with respect to hurricanes in the country. And while a lot of buildings performed quite well, many did not. Now, I have not examined your community closely, but I would be surprised if you were as well prepared as South Florida. Getting to your question then, if you would have had a direct hit from Andrew, I think you would have had as much damage as they experienced in Dade County from the wind alone. And that's not addressing, of course, the storm surge problem, which you're well aware is a major threat as well.
Well, Dr. Joe, of course, that's what this program is about, trying to educate our viewers not only on the water damage, potential water damage, but also on the winds. Thank you for joining us from St. Louis. That's Dr. Joseph Miner, a hurricane expert on wind damage. We'll be back in a minute.
Hear the story of a survivor who watched his village wash into the Gulf. WVUE's Weather 8 special, Hurricane Warning, will return in a moment.
You've been hearing me talk a lot about LAS, but what's most important is what our customers have to say about LAS.
When I was asked if I would recommend LAS, I told them I'd already done so, and a next-door neighbor used LAS.
I'm very pleased with my LAS windows.
LAS installers were talented, capable, and efficient.
Everything was done in a very professional way.
And if a problem should come up, I know LAS will be there.
So whether it's siding, windows, or any type of home improvement, call the name you grew up with. Call LAS today.
For years, you've depended on State Farm to insure your home. Daddy! But did you know you can also depend on us to provide financial security for those you love? State Farm. We sell life insurance.
State Farm sells life insurance, and like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Like the currents of the river, pushing each and every way. You're a medley of all kinds of tunes, but it's our song you play. You're proud of where you came from and where you're going to. You're the spice of life, the feeling in the gumbo. Our family pride is stronger now than ever.
Taking pride in what's uniquely ours, the Whitney.
Okay, so what do we say in the new Cotman commercial?
Let's talk about a fast, reliable service.
How about a free 21-point courtesy check?
Yeah. Right. No one stands behind their warranty like Cotman.
That's right.
Our techs are SC certified.
Right.
Don't forget about our interest-free payments with approval.
Good. That's right.
And we're the standard transmission and clutch replacement experts.
Right.
Yeah. We're the import and front-wheel drive specialists.
Yeah. That's right, David. That's right.
Well, guys, we only have 30 seconds.
Cotman Transmissions, #1 in the New Orleans area for all the right reasons.
Since the 1890s, nearly 30 hurricanes have scored a direct hit on Louisiana. One of the worst happened a century ago in a place called Cheniere Caminada, a thriving fishing and agricultural community. Its residents lived a comfortable life, making their living from the sea and trading with New Orleans and neighboring Grand Isle. Then on Sunday, October 1st, 1893, life in the little town was changed forever. Without modern devices to warn them or telegraphs to call for help, the people of Cheniere Caminada were struck by a hurricane. It blew in from the Gulf, accompanied by winds of up to 175 miles per hour. You are about to see rare footage taken in 1980 of Daisy Cherami, one of the last survivors of Cheniere Caminada. He and his family survived the storm by taking refuge in the attic of a well-built house protected by sheltering oaks. His memories are all that remain of the once peaceful town.
At that point, all of the women and children went up into the attic. The men stayed below. As the storm got stronger, the women began to cry, to pray not to drown. Then we began to hear screams, the screams of people passing by, drowning, screaming for their parents.
Tous les femmes continuent à prier le bon Dieu, demander au bon Dieu de ne pas nous quitter mourir. De nous quitter vivre.
I was only 5 at the time. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Amazingly, the grove which saved their lives still stands. The town of Cheniere Caminada does not. Cherami vividly remembers the morning following the storm. He said, quote, "The bodies were so thick that in some places you could have walked over them without touching the ground." Over 2,000 people died in that storm. Most were drowned in a 30-foot tidal wave, which swept Cheniere Caminada out of existence.
When we return, test your knowledge on hurricanes. Are you prepared for the next storm? Find out when WVUE returns with Hurricane Warning, a Weather 8 special presentation.
At Egan Insurance Agency, we represent a multitude of companies. More companies mean more resources. More resources mean more options for you, your family, and your business. Egan Insurance does more than sell policies. We match the greatest value from a variety of companies to meet your needs. We're the experts. We get involved. We examine what's right for you. Egan Insurance, protection beyond the ordinary.
Coolview manufactures and installs roll-of-view security shutters for your home or business. They're perfect for windows, doors, balconies, and other building openings. Rolling shutters provide impact-resistant security from damaging winds and flying debris, and they can't be opened from the outside. Let Coolview install comfort, security, privacy, storm protection, and sun control, all at the touch of a button with automated rolling shutters. Call Coolview Aluminum, the fully insured and licensed home improvement specialists at 943-3316. Low financing is available.
Ready to talk Saints football after today's game?
Talk to me, Buddy D.
Want an honest opinion about the boys in black and gold?
Hey, man, were you watching the same game I was watching?
Hey, buddy, when you said that last week, I thought you were crazy, man, but you called it right again.
Talk to Buddy D. Nobody else tells it like it is.
Talk Saints football with me, Buddy D. Right after today's game on WWL 870 AM.
That's WWL 870 AM. News Talk Sports Radio.
Now that we've prepared you for the storm, let's put you to the test. Give yourself a point for every correct answer. At what speed does a storm become a hurricane? A, 60 miles an hour, B, 35 miles per hour, C, 74 miles per hour, or D, 80 miles per hour? The correct answer is C, 74 miles per hour. Question number 2. Our hurricane season lasts from August 1st to November 30th. True or false? That is false. The hurricane season actually begins on June 1st, but the main active part of the season, when we get our most storms, 2 months, August and September. Question number 3. In a hurricane, winds move counterclockwise around a center of low pressure. True or false? The answer is true. Question number 4. In a hurricane, fatalities are most often the result of A, flying debris, B, drowning, C, electrocution from downed power lines, or D, overturned mobile homes. The answer is drowning. More people are killed in a hurricane from the storm surge and are drowned in the surge. Question number 5. After a hurricane has struck your area, is it safe to drink the water? The answer is no. Either have bottled water on hand or you must boil the water. Question number 6. You live in a sturdy 2-story brick house. The National Weather Service has issued an evacuation order for your community. Which of the following actions would you take? A, close windows and doors tightly and have a party. B, move family and valuables upstairs. C, go outside and videotape the storm. D, immediately begin executing your evacuation plan. The correct answer is D. You should begin executing the evacuation plan. Folks, we've heard too many horror stories of people not evacuating, throwing hurricane parties, and not living to tell about it. Please follow the evacuation orders. Question number 7. When the rain stops and the winds die down, the storm is over and you can resume your normal activities. True or false? The answer is false. You may only be in the eye of the storm. You must wait until you get the official all-clear order. Question number 8. In the event of a fallen power line in your yard, you should A, move it out of your yard, B, stay away from it and call the power company, C, cut it short so no one steps on it, D, tie caution tape to the end of the wire. The correct answer is B, stay away from it, call the power company. Never touch a downed wire or anything it comes into contact with. Question number 9. You should bring your pet with you if you have to go to a shelter. True or false? The answer is false. Evacuation shelters do not allow any pets. Question number 10. When making your evacuation plan, the most important articles to take with you are A, jewelry and valuables, B, stereo and TV, C, guns, D, personal papers and photographs. The correct answer is D, personal papers and photographs. These are the hardest to replace. Question number 11. During a hurricane, you are safer in your car than in your home. True or false? The answer is false. If you haven't adequately given yourself enough time to evacuate, you're far safer in your home than stuck in your car in a traffic jam trying to outrun the storm. Question number 12. Insurance companies typically sell flood insurance that becomes effective A, immediately, B, 24 hours after you request coverage, C, 5 days after you request coverage, or D, when they get your check. The correct answer is C, 5 days after you request coverage. Question number 13. The most important survival items to stock up on before the storm are A, food and water, B, batteries and radio, C, gas and candles. The correct answer is A, food and water. Our final question. We recommend that you place your shutters deep set inside your window frames or fastened to the walls of your house. The correct answer is B, fastened to the walls of your house. If you choose A and put them deep set inside, the pressure goes to the window frame. You want to put them outside on the walls, a far stronger part of your house. If you've been scoring yourself on our test and you've answered 12 or more questions correctly, then you are a hurricane veteran. But remember, it only takes one wrong decision to place you in danger. We'll be right back.
An oil tanker erupted into an inferno of fire in the Gulf of Mexico.
And Petrocom Services aids offshore crew evacuations in the otherwise...
Hurricane Andrew hits the Gulf of Mexico hard. An oil rig toppled under hurricane force winds.
Honey, don't worry, I'm safe.
You can't afford to be without reliable offshore communications. Petrocom Offshore Cellular Service.
You've been hearing me talk a lot about LES, but what's most important is what our customers have to say about LES.
When I was asked if I would recommend LES, I told them I'd already done so, and a next-door neighbor used LES.
I'm very pleased with my LES windows.
LES installers were talented, capable, and efficient.
Everything was done in a very professional way.
And if a problem should come up, I know LES will be there.
So whether it's siding, windows, or any type of home improvement, call the name you grew up with. Call LES today.
Hi, handyman Craig Lowe to talk with you about some real air conditioning facts. Did you know that Carrier invented air conditioning, and they're by far the world's largest? Now let me discuss one fact that makes Carrier number one. Carrier has the quietest air conditioner available based on decibels. That's important. But who measures decibels? What is important is what you don't hear. Listen to this Carrier unit. Now that's quiet by the only standard that counts. If you don't buy a Carrier from a Peace of Mind Comfort Pro dealer, you'll really pay too much.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed tonight's broadcast, and we especially hope that we've prepared you for the next storm. In the event of a hurricane, stay tuned to WVUE News 8. We'll keep you briefed with coverage of the latest news and weather coordinates. And if you want to track the storm this season, you can pick up our hurricane tracking charts from any Kentwood Water and participating Chevron dealer. We look forward to helping you weather even the roughest storms. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
We hope you have enjoyed Hurricane Warning. For a transcript of this broadcast, please send a self-addressed stamped envelope to WVUE Weather 8, Hurricane Warning, 1025 South Jefferson Davis Parkway, New Orleans, Louisiana, 70125.
Hurricane Warning has been brought to you by Carrier and your Carrier Comfort Pro, by Coolview Aluminum, by Petrocom, by LAS Enterprises, and by Egan Insurance Agency.
Now stay tuned for the Saints in Tokyo, starting with a pregame warm-up from WVUE Sports 8. Next.
What do you really watch on cable TV? Right now, you're watching a local station, a station with some of your favorite shows, local news, weather, sports. But how much cable would you watch if it didn't include local TV stations? No Seinfeld, no 60 Minutes, no Home Improvement, no soap operas, no Star Trek, no Super Bowl? Doesn't look much like television, does it? Local TV, it makes cable worth watching.